Hello everyone, welcome to History Mystery Junction. Today we'll start with Chapter 2 of History, the establishment of company power. As we have read in class 7th, Aurangzeb was the last Mughal ruler. After his death in 1707, the Mughal Empire gradually declined. New regional powers emerged, and by the mid 18th century, Mughal rule continued only in the regions around Delhi. At this time, the English East India Company emerged as the chief contender for political supremacy in India. How then did they come to be masters of a vast empire? In this chapter, you will see how this actually happened. Dear students, this is world map showing different continents in different colors. In the upcoming topics of this chapter, I would be referring to different maps. So, you can always refer this one to make your concepts more clear. Many foreign traders came to India for trading and for business. As you can see in the given map, Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Southeast. All these were having trade relations with India. The cotton and silk produced in India had a big market in Europe. Similarly, spices such as pepper, cloves, cardamoms, and cinnamon too were in great demand. The only way the trading companies could flourish was by reducing competition. This was the main reason why India was attracted by many foreign traders. The first one of them were the Portuguese. India had commercial relations with the countries of the West since ancient times. The Mughal emperors had failed to guard their sea coast due to the lack of strong navy. Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese navigator, found out a new sea route to India. He reached the port of Calicut, it is a place in Kerala in India, on 20 May 1498 with a fleet of 4 ships and 118 sailors on board. They had established the settlements in Goa, Daman, and Diu. Malabar coast is the southwest shoreline of Indian subcontinent. Now we can see the route, that is the sea route, how Vasco da Gama came to India. He started from Portugal. It is situated in Europe. From there he came to Cape of Good Hope, that is in Africa, and then at last he came to India, that is Calicut in Kerala. He reached Calicut in 1498. Then his Dutch East India Company. They succeeded in establishing their monopoly in the spice trade throughout the 17th century. They established a trade link between India and the islands of the Far East. Far East means Spice Island of Indonesia, as you can see in figure 2. This company was formed in 1602, and Dutch basically came from Netherlands. They were the people who were from Netherlands, as you can see in figure 1. Netherlands is again a place in Europe. Then the important trade centers were Surat, Bharuch, etc. In 1600, Queen Elizabeth I granted the East India Company the monopoly to trade with India through a charter. Charter is a document or permission to trade. This meant that no other trading group in England could compete with the East India Company. With the help of this charter, the company could venture across the seas looking for new lands from where it could buy goods at a cheap price and carry them back to Europe to sell at higher price. Then we would see how Britishers came for trading and how they started interfering in the political affairs of India. They started by taking decree from Jahangir that was revoked. Then again Jahangir granted a decree in 1612. After that, Britishers started making permanent factories in different places of the country. Many fortified factories were also built and many villages were developed. French East India Company. French were last to appear in India. Soon the French traders arrived on the scene. They established their trade settlements at Pondicherry, Mahe, Chandranagore, etc. Dupleix, the Governor General at Pondicherry, played a major role in the expansion of French power in India. The company was dependent on French government for their finances. In figure 1 and figure 3, you can see their trade settlements. The rulers of these countries framed economic policies to protect their overseas trade interest against foreign competition. This policy was called mercantilism. The English allowed goods to be imported into England only in English ships. This enabled the English to regulate the type of goods entering into England. The basic principle of this policy was to minimize import and maximize export. In mercantilism, gold and precious metal stores will increase only when the companies will export more instead of importing. So, what they used to do is they used to purchase from their colonies raw material at lower cost and then they used to sell at higher prices. By this, they could maximize their profits. As you can see in figure 2, a balance is given, and when it is favorable, when more export is done. When more export is done, more money could be made. That's why export side is lower because it is heavy and import is less. That's why its weight is less. The establishment of Portuguese, Dutch, British and French factories in India and the Eastern Islands resulted in competition and rivalry amongst them. All of them wanted to excel in trade by earning maximum profits. To prevent each other from profitable trade, the companies were engaged in constant conflicts. They also raised arms against the local ruler. Britishers were successful to defeat Dutch and Portuguese. Now only one rival was left, that is French. In order to have a monopoly over the trade in India and Eastern Islands, it was necessary for Britishers to eliminate their rival. So now the chief amongst them was the French. Britishers and French were traditional rivals in most of the European wars of the 18th century. The conflict of trade interest between them finally ended with the three Anglo-French wars or the Carnatic Wars that were fought from 1746 to 1763 in India. French Governor Dupleix thought that Britishers are going to acquire Pondicherry. It was a French company headquarters. So he captured Madras, and this was the first reason for starting of First Carnatic War. This war ended with the treaty. Treaty was signed and English was successful to restore back Madras. Then the basic issue of Second Karnataka War was the issue of succession. Both the companies wanted their favorite Nawab to be appointed, who could grant them more economic concession. In this war, French were defeated and Muhammad Ali was made Nawab of Karnataka. Again in this war also peace treaty was signed. And then the last war, that is the Third Karnataka War. At this time, because of the Battle of Plassey, the Britishers gained control over the rich province of Bengal and French were handicapped because they had shortage of fund. So again in this battle the Britishers defeated French and it started in 1760 to 1763. In 1760, battle at Wandiwash, that is a place in Tamil Nadu, was held. And this war, that is the Third Karnataka War, started from 1756 and it ended with the Treaty of Paris in 1763 between France and England. The French company was given back the factories, but they were not allowed to keep their troops. In the 18th century, Bengal was a rich province. It also flourished well in trade and commerce. The English had established their first factory in Bengal in 1651. Siraj-ud-Dowlah was young and inexperienced. He was also short-tempered. The English considered it the right time to interfere in the politics of Bengal. They began to fortify Fort William at Calcutta. Aware of the company's political desires, Siraj-ud-Dowlah asked the English to immediately stop fortification and pay revenue. When the English refused to obey, Nawab marched with an army of 30,000 soldiers and laid the siege of Calcutta. He captured many company officials, and this was called as the Black Hole Tragedy. When only 23 of English prisoners survived out of 145. When Robert Clive arrived in Calcutta, he was successful in securing the support of Mir Zafar, the commander-in-chief of Nawab's army. They both joined hands together to depose Siraj-ud-Dowlah. The armies of the Nawab and the British faced each other at Plassey. Siraj-ud-Dowlah was captured and killed. The Battle of Plassey was the first major victory of the English in India. They now got a monopoly over trade in Bengal, and Mir Zafar was proclaimed the new Nawab of Bengal. Britishers were unhappy with Mir Zafar, so he was replaced with Mir Qasim. Mir Qasim too emerged as threat to the company because now Indian merchants were also able to enjoy concessions which only the British enjoyed so far. After the Battle of Plassey, there was a battle between Mir Qasim and his alliance, the Nawab of Awadh, Shujā-ud-Dawla and Shah Alam II, the Mughal emperor, on the one side and the British on the other side. The alliance, along with Mir Qasim, were defeated by the company forces at Buxar. Buxar is a place in Bihar. It was the most decisive battles in Indian history. It made the East India Company the real masters of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. Mir Zafar was reinstated, and on his death, they placed his second son, Nizam-ud-Dawla, on the throne. He was made to sign a new treaty. By this treaty, the Nawab was to disband most of his army and to administer Bengal. The right to collect Diwani or land revenues in the provinces of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha were handed over to the British by the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. In return, the company agreed to pay annually a pension, that is, a secured amount of money. From him, the Diwani of Kara and Allahabad was secured. Then, a new system was introduced. According to this system, the real power of jurisdiction lays with the company, while the responsibility of administration was of the Nawab of Bengal. This was called as dual system of administration. The oppression of the people was increased greatly after this system of administration. Tipu Sultan was the ruler of the kingdom of Mysore. He is better known as the Tiger of Mysore. Mysore controlled the trade of the Malabar coast, where the company bought spices for trade. Tipu and his father Hyder Ali proved successful in defeating the British in the First Anglo-Mysore War and in the Second Anglo-Mysore War. While the British became aware of Tipu's growing strength, they made alliance with the neighboring Nizam of Hyderabad and the Marathas, leading to the Third Anglo-Mysore War. The French, however, deserted Tipu, and the combined forces proved immense for Tipu. He was defeated in this war at his capital of Seringamapatnam, thus forcing him to sign a treaty that witnessed half of his kingdom be confiscated along with the huge war indemnity. After the British broke alliances with the Nawab, they once again sought to attack Mysore, leading to the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War in 1799. Tipu Sultan was killed defending his capital, Seringamapatnam. Nearly half of Tipu's dominion were divided between British and their ally, the Nizam. A special treaty of subsidiary alliance was imposed on the new Raja, by which the Governor General was authorized to take over the administration of the state. The Marathas were the only major power left outside the sphere of British control. Lord Wellesley now turned his attention towards them and began interfering in their internal affairs. They were also aware of the mutual differences between the Maratha leaders. They took this to their advantage and prepared themselves for the annexation of Maratha territory. Many Maratha rulers, in order to fulfill their desires, joined hands with English. The British forces successfully defeated and deprived of possessions. Britishers successfully dethroned Peshwas and deposed him of the pensions. Territories were annexed to the province of Bombay, and major Maratha chiefs were Holkars, Sindhias, Gaikwad and Bhosle. They all signed subsidiary treaty, subsidiary alliance. A state under this system had to surrender its external relations to the care of the company. Any form of negotiations with other states were to be made through the company. The company, in turn, was to protect the state against any foreign invasions. The system proved to be very beneficial for the Britishers. On the pretext of protecting a state, the company could now maintain a large standing army at the expense of the Indian princes. It gave the company a chance to expand their territories further in India. The Indian rulers had to face the interference of the British residents in their everyday affairs. The Indian rulers lost their administrative as well as financial independence. The annexation of Sindh was important for the defense of English territories. Sindh was a loyal subsidiary state and it was annexed in 1843. Punjab was now the only large and independent state left out of the British control. It was then being ruled by Ranjit Singh. He maintained an efficient army and employed Europeans in his state. After Ranjit Singh's death in 1839, Punjab witnessed political instability. The British saw it the right opportunity to forward their plan of annexation of Punjab. After two long wars, that is, the First Anglo-Sikh War and the Second Anglo-Sikh War, Punjab was finally annexed in 1849. According to this doctrine, if the ruler of any dependent state died without a legitimate heir to the throne, then his state would directly be annexed or lapsed to the British Empire. The British annexed the states of Satara, Jaipur, Sambhalpur, Udaipur, Jhansi, and Nagpur under the doctrine of lapse. It was Governor General Lord Dalhousie who applied this doctrine. Till now, almost all parts of India were conquered by Britishers, directly or indirectly. Acts of Permanent Settlement. Regulating Act of 1773. This was passed by British Parliament. It was passed to regulate how the company is functioning, and 4 members of council were appointed. Governor of Bengal became Governor General of India. But the major problem was that Governor General could be overruled by his council. Pitt's India Act 1784. It gave British government supreme control to established board of control. It included 2 cabinet ministers and 6 commissioners, and the council had 3 members. The control of Governor General was clearly defined. Then the Charter Act. First one, it was in 1786. In this, Governor General had right to overrule his council. Then Charter Act 1813. In this, company's monopoly in India to trade was abolished. Charter Act 1833. A law member was appointed. He was added to the council. Lord Cornwallis established ICS, that is Indian Civil Service exams, and the recruitments were done through entrance exam. Then the first Indian to pass, you can just see the picture, and Indians, those who were appointed, they were excluded from the higher posts. In order to have a sound system of administration, it was necessary for the British to organize an efficient army. The army, mainly considered of Indian soldiers or sepoys, the higher rank of the army were reserved for the British. An Indian could rise only to the rank of Subedar. Soldiers were trained in the European method or warfare, and their lives were made more disciplined. Governor General Lord Cornwallis is credited to have established a regular police force in India. From 1792, every district was divided into a number of thanas. A daroga was the head of the thana. He was assisted by policemen in the maintenance of law and order. The darogas of various police stations were under the district superintendent, who was generally a British. The chowkidars or watchmen looked after the villages. The kotwals maintained law and order in the town. In 1772, Warren Hastings introduced judicial reforms in India. Hindu and Muslim laws were to be applied for the Hindus and Muslims respectively. In 1833, a law commission was appointed. It was given the task of codification of Indian laws. Then in 1837, Indian Penal Code, Code of Civil and Criminal Procedures came into force. 1774, Supreme Court in Calcutta was established. Then rule of law and equality before law was also introduced. Europeans had separate court. Rule of law means administration would be carried out as per the laws and provisions. And equality before law meant that all are equal before law. Students, this is the complete timeline of chapter starting from 1600 to 1856. Then next one is lesson panorama. This is the complete summary of chapter, so you can refer to it. And here we complete our chapter. I hope you understood it very well. Thank you. God bless you.